Lena had always been a quiet girl. All her life, she lived in a small town where people rarely noticed her. She was shorter than most women her age, with a thin frame that made strangers assume she was fragile, but inside her small body lived a heart stronger than she ever showed. She worked hard, helped neighbors when they needed her, and carried her problems without troubling others. Even so, she lived alone and felt invisible. She often wondered if she would ever be truly seen by someone. One day, she heard about a program where women could become mail-order brides and marry men who lived in distant places. Many women used this path to find stability, especially those who wanted a new start. Lena thought long and hard about it. She wanted a home, a family, and a place where she could belong. After many nights of thinking, she finally decided to take the risk. Maybe this could be her chance to build a better life. She wrote to a man named Mr. Halston, a wealthy landowner who needed a wife to help him manage his farm. His letters were short and cold, but they sounded practical. He didn't speak of love, only of duties and expectations. Lena didn't mind. She didn't expect romance. She only wanted a safe place and someone who needed her. When he agreed to choose her, she felt a tiny bit of hope grow inside her chest. She sold the little she had, packed her simple belongings, and boarded a long train heading toward a remote frontier town. The journey felt endless. Days passed as she watched fields roll by, mountains appear in the distance, and small stations where strangers hurried with their own lives. She silently prayed that her choice would not lead her into more loneliness. When the train stopped at the dusty town where Mr. Halston lived, Lena stepped out with a small suitcase and a nervous smile. The wind was dry, and the sun felt harsher than she expected. People looked at her with quick glances, curious about the new girl arriving alone. She stood there, waiting for her future husband. Mr. Halston arrived with 2 ranch hands. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed in fine clothes for someone who worked on land. He walked toward her with a firm step, but the moment he saw her, his eyebrows drew together. He looked her up and down carefully, almost measuring her with his eyes. Lena felt her stomach tighten, but she smiled politely. "So, you're Lena?" he asked, his tone filled with doubt. "Yes, sir," she replied softly. "It's nice to finally meet you." He didn't return the smile. Instead, he crossed his arms and frowned. "You're smaller than I expected." Lena lowered her gaze, not knowing what to say. She had mentioned her height in the letters, but perhaps he never paid attention. The ranch hands exchanged looks as if they already knew what would happen. "I need someone strong," Mr. Halston continued. "Someone who can work hard. You look, well, you look like you'll break in the wind." A few people at the station turned their heads when they heard his voice. Lena's cheeks warmed with embarrassment. She wanted to explain that she might be small, but she had worked hard all her life. She wanted to say she was stronger than she appeared, but her voice felt stuck in her throat. Mr. Halston shook his head. "This isn't going to work. I can't take you as my wife. You wouldn't manage the farm." Lena's heart dropped. She felt the ground shift under her feet. After traveling all this way, after giving up everything she had back home, she was being rejected publicly. She tried to stay calm, but the pain was sharp. Still, she kept her small, polite smile, even though her eyes felt heavy. "Sir," she whispered, "I can learn. I work hard. I promise." "No," he cut her off. "I'm sorry, but I can't take the risk. I need someone sturdier." With that, he turned around and walked away. The ranch hands followed him, neither offering her a word of comfort nor even a glance. Within seconds, he disappeared down the dusty road, leaving Lena standing alone with her suitcase. People at the station began whispering. Some shook their heads with pity, while others simply went on with their business. Lena felt like she was shrinking even smaller under their eyes, but instead of crying, she sat quietly on a wooden bench near the station wall. She straightened her back, placed her hands calmly on her lap, and looked ahead as if she still had everything under control. Her strength was silent, but it was there. The station master approached her gently. He had seen many people come and go, but something about the way Lena sat there, hurt yet refusing to fall apart, made him pause. "Ma'am, do you have somewhere to stay tonight?" he asked kindly. She shook her head. "No, sir, I don't. Do you have anyone in town?" "No." "Money?" She looked down. "Not enough to travel back home." The station master felt sorry for her, but there was nothing he could offer except a little advice. "Maybe someone in town will need help. Folks around here hire workers during the season. You might find something till you figure things out." Lena thanked him with a small nod. She appreciated the kindness, even if it wasn't much. After he walked away, she sat alone again. Hours passed. The sun slowly began to set, and the town grew quieter. Her stomach growled, but she stayed still. She wasn't sure what to do next. She had no home, no husband, and no plan. Yet she didn't cry. Not because she wasn't hurt, but because she had learned long ago that tears rarely solved anything. She took slow breaths and told herself she would find a way. She always did. Even when life tried to push her down. As the sky turned orange, a few townspeople passed by. Some looked at her with sympathy, others with curiosity, and a few with judgment. They whispered things like, "Poor girl," or "Too small for ranch work anyway." Lena heard their comments, but she kept her face calm. She didn't want anyone to see the sadness inside her. A soft breeze blew through her hair as she stared at the horizon. Somewhere inside, she felt a tiny spark, a reminder that she was stronger than people believed. She held onto that spark quietly, hoping it would be enough to guide her through the night. She had no idea that someone else was about to notice it too. Nearby, a rancher named Elias had been delivering supplies to the town. He didn't know anything about the mail-order bride situation. He didn't know Lena or her story. But as he walked past the station, he noticed the small woman sitting alone with a suitcase, looking tired but strangely composed. Something about her stillness made him slow down. He watched her for a moment, how she sat upright, not begging for help, not crying, not complaining. She looked lost, but brave. He wondered what had happened to her, and why someone like her was alone in a place where loneliness could swallow a person whole. Lena did not yet know it, but this moment, this quiet, painful moment at the station would lead her to a new path. A path she never expected. A path where someone would finally see the strength that others overlooked. But for now, she remained on the bench, waiting for night to settle, unaware that her life was about to change once again. Elias had not planned to stop at the station for long. He came only to pick up a small package of supplies. But the moment he noticed the young woman sitting alone with her suitcase, something made him pause. She looked tired, almost like someone who had carried a heavy burden for far too long. Yet, there was a calm strength about her. A steady way she held herself, even though she clearly had nowhere to go. Most people in her situation would be crying or asking for help. But she sat quietly, looking at the ground, as if thinking deeply. He walked closer and gently cleared his throat so she would notice him. Lena looked up quickly, surprised to see someone standing in front of her. For a moment, she wondered if he was another stranger passing by, but Elias did not carry the same judgment in his eyes as others had. His expression was warm, curious, and patient. "Evening," he said softly. "Are you waiting for someone?" Lena hesitated. She wasn't sure how much she should explain, but she also didn't want to lie. "No, sir," she answered. "I was earlier, but not anymore." Elias didn't push her for details. He could already sense something had gone wrong. He sat on the bench beside her, leaving enough space so she wouldn't feel uncomfortable. For a moment, neither of them said anything. The quiet around them felt surprisingly peaceful. "Do you have a place to stay tonight?" he finally asked. Lena shook her head. "No, sir." "And family? Friends nearby?" "No." Elias looked at her suitcase. It was small, almost too small to hold everything a person needed to start a new life. He understood then that she must have traveled far, perhaps giving up everything for a chance that didn't work out. "If you'd like," he said gently. "I have a ranch not too far from here. You can stay there for a few days. It's safer than spending the night out here." Lena blinked in surprise. I don't want to trouble you, sir. It's no trouble, Elias replied. You'd be helping me too. There's always work on a ranch. If you're willing to do small tasks, we can call it even. She looked down at her hands. I can work hard, she whispered. I just need a little time to think. That's all right, he said with a nod. Everyone needs time sometimes. Lena could feel the sincerity in his voice. She studied his face for a moment. Elias was not a man who pretended. His eyes were calm. His posture relaxed. And there was no judgment on his face. He wasn't offering out of pity, he was offering out of genuine kindness. After a long pause, Lena nodded. All right. Thank you. Elias stood and offered his hand to help her up. She accepted, and he picked up her suitcase with ease. They walked toward his small wagon parked nearby. The sky had turned a soft orange with hints of pink, and the cool evening breeze felt gentle on Lena's skin. She climbed into the wagon, sitting quietly as Elias settled beside her and took the reins. The ride to the ranch was slow and peaceful. The road was bumpy, but Lena didn't mind. She watched the fields stretch out on both sides, glowing softly under the fading sunlight. Elias glanced at her now and then, noticing how she tried to stay calm even though she was clearly exhausted. You can rest if you want, he said. It'll take a little while to reach. Lena smiled faintly. I'm all right. I'm just thinking. That's a habit I know too well, Elias replied, thinking late into the night, wondering what to do next. Lena didn't say anything, but she felt seen in a way she hadn't felt for a long time. When they arrived at the ranch, the sky had darkened. The wooden house looked warm and inviting, with soft light shining from the windows. A few horses were resting near the fence, and one lifted its head curiously when the wagon approached. This is home, Elias said quietly. It's not much, but it's peaceful. Lena stepped down and looked around. The ranch wasn't as big or fancy as Mr. Halston's place she had imagined, but it felt like a real home, a place built with care and steady hands. Elias led her inside. The house smelled of warm bread and clean wood. The living room had a simple charm, with handmade furniture, a small fireplace, and shelves filled with things Elias clearly used every day. You can take the small guest room, he said, pointing down a hallway. It's not large, but it has a bed and clean sheets. It's more than I expected, Lena said truthfully. If you're hungry, there's some soup on the stove. Lena's stomach tightened as she remembered she had not eaten all day. She nodded gratefully and followed him into the kitchen. Elias ladled some warm soup into a bowl and placed it on the table for her. She sat slowly, almost shyly, as if she wasn't sure she deserved kindness. You don't need to thank me, he said before she could speak. Anyone would do the same. Lena knew that wasn't true. She had met many people today who walked past her without offering even a gentle word. But she kept her thoughts to herself and ate quietly. The simple soup tasted comforting, as if it was healing the emptiness inside her. After she finished, she helped Elias clean up without being asked. Elias noticed the gentle way she moved, careful, precise, making sure not to disturb anything. She worked with quiet determination, even in small things like wiping the table. You must be tired, he said after a while. Get some rest. Lena nodded and went to the guest room. The room was small, but she didn't mind at all. The bed looked soft. The window let in a cool breeze, and a small lamp gave the room a peaceful glow. She sat on the edge of the bed for a long moment, taking slow breaths. The fear and shame from earlier were still there, but now they were softened by the kindness she had received. She lay down, pulling the blanket over herself. As she closed her eyes, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: safety. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but tonight, she was not alone. In the morning, Lena woke up early. She wanted to start working before Elias had to ask. She braided her hair neatly, washed her face, and stepped outside. The ranch looked even more beautiful in daylight. Birds chirped near the fence, and soft sunlight covered the land. Elias spotted her already awake. He smiled lightly. You're an early riser. I wanted to help, she said. Please tell me what I can do. He pointed toward the yard. If you want to start with something simple, you can feed the chickens. I'll show you how. Lena listened carefully as he explained the steps. She followed his instructions exactly, making sure she did everything right. Elias watched from a distance and noticed how she moved slowly but steadily, not giving up even when the chickens pushed around her feet. When she finished, she helped with other tasks. She swept the porch, filled the water trough for the animals, and folded laundry that had dried in the sun. She was small, but she carried out every task with focus and sincerity. Throughout the day, Elias noticed things others had never bothered to see. She wasn't fragile or weak. She was hardworking, patient, and thoughtful. She didn't complain. She didn't show signs of giving up. Even when she made mistakes, she corrected them quietly without frustration. In the afternoon, they rested under a tree for a short break. Lena wiped her forehead gently. Elias handed her a cup of cool water. "You've helped a lot today," he said. "Thank you." Lena felt warmth spread through her chest. "I'm glad I could do something." "You did more than something," Elias replied. "Most people give up halfway through their first day. But you keep going." Lena looked down shyly. "People don't usually say that about me. They say I'm too small." Elias shook his head. "Size has nothing to do with effort. I've seen big men quit before finishing simple tasks. Hard work doesn't depend on how tall someone is." Those words stayed with Lena long after the sun began to sink. No one had ever spoken to her like that, not with honesty, not with respect. That evening, as they stood outside watching the orange sky, Elias realized something important. Lena wasn't just someone he offered shelter to. She was someone special, someone who carried a strength that had nothing to do with her appearance. She didn't know it yet, but he had noticed something others failed to see. And for the first time since she arrived in the town, Lena felt hope. Days passed quietly on the ranch, and Lena slowly fell into a steady rhythm. Each morning she woke before sunrise, braided her hair, washed her face, and stepped outside to begin her chores. Elias noticed that she never waited to be told what to do. She watched, learned, and remembered everything he showed her. Even though she was small, she moved with surprising confidence. She didn't rush, but she also didn't slow down or hesitate. Her quiet strength was becoming more visible each day. Elias often found himself stopping to observe her from a distance, the way she carried a bucket, the way she leaned down to pet a nervous goat, the way she wiped her hands on her apron before doing a new task. It all showed discipline and care. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She simply wanted to be useful, to earn her place, even though Elias never asked her for more than she could give. One evening, after a long day of work, Elias sat with her on the porch. The sky was soft and pink, and the cool breeze brushed gently against their faces. Lena held a cup of warm tea in her hands. She liked the silence that often stretched between them. It wasn't uncomfortable. It felt warm, almost peaceful. "You've done a lot these past days," Elias said. "Thank you for helping so much." "I like helping," Lena replied softly. "It keeps my mind calm." "Your mind?" he asked gently. Lena looked down into her cup, watching the steam swirl above the tea. "Some days, I remember why I came here, and how it all started." She paused, taking a slow breath. "I left my home thinking I would build a new life. But when I arrived, the man who chose me turned me away in front of everyone. He said I was too small." Her voice weakened slightly, but she kept talking. "I think that moment hurt more than I expected." Elias listened quietly, letting her speak without interruption. He understood that sometimes people didn't need answers, they just needed to let their feelings out. "When he walked away," Lena continued, "I thought maybe everyone would always see me that way. Someone not strong enough. Someone too small to matter." Elias's expression softened. He was wrong. Lena blinked, surprised by the certainty in his voice. "You've worked harder than anyone I've seen in a long time," Elias said. "Strength isn't in size. It's in a person's heart. And yours? It's stronger than many people twice your size." Lena felt a quiet warmth inside her chest. She didn't know how to respond, so she simply nodded, letting his words settle in her heart. As the days passed, her confidence slowly grew. The ranch hands, who had been unsure about her at first, began noticing her effort too. They greeted her kindly, answered her questions, and sometimes asked her to help with simple tasks because they trusted her careful nature. But soon, nature tested the ranch in ways none of them expected. One afternoon, dark clouds gathered across the sky. The air felt heavy, and the wind began to blow in sudden, uneven gusts. Elias stood outside, looking up at the sky with concern. He had lived on the land long enough to recognize the signs of a serious storm. "Lena," he called, "we need to bring the animals closer to shelter before the storm hits." Lena hurried to his side, tying her hair back tightly. "Tell me what I should do. Tell me what I should do." Before Elias could answer, a loud rumble of thunder rolled across the sky. The wind picked up, blowing dust into the air. The animals grew nervous, pacing and making restless sounds. "We work together," Elias said, giving her a quick nod of reassurance. "Stay close to me." They moved quickly, guiding the horses toward the stable. The wind pushed against them, making it hard to walk straight. Lena's hair whipped across her face, but she did not slow down. She spoke softly to the horses, calming them with her gentle voice. Next, they rounded up the smaller animals. The goats and chickens ran in scattered directions, frightened by the growing storm. Lena didn't panic. She moved carefully but confidently, blocking their path with her body and guiding them toward safer areas. She spoke with patience, her calmness helping the animals settle. Elias felt a deep respect growing in his heart as he watched Lena. Many people would have given up from fear or exhaustion, but she kept going, following him through wind, rain, and noise. Her small frame moved with surprising purpose. Then the rain began, first a light patter, then heavy drops that fell faster and faster. The sky darkened completely, and thunder shook the ground. Elias shouted over the noise, "Lena, stay close." She nodded, wiping rain from her eyes. They still had to check the far fence, where a small creek ran. If the water rose too high, some of the younger animals might get trapped. They rushed to the area, stepping carefully on the slippery ground. The creek water was rising, rushing faster than normal. As they reached the fence, they heard a faint, frightened sound. A calf had slipped and was stuck near the edge of the water. It struggled to climb up but couldn't find firm ground. "We have to get it out," Lena said quickly. Elias was about to step forward, but the ground near him suddenly cracked. "Wait, don't get too close. It's too muddy." But Lena was already moving. She got down on her knees and crawled toward the calf, keeping her weight low to avoid sinking. Rain poured down her face, but she didn't stop. She reached the calf, wrapped her arms around its small body, and pulled with all her strength. For a moment, it didn't move. The mud held it tightly. "Come on," she whispered softly. "You can do it." She pulled again, this time with more determination. Slowly, the calf's legs shifted. Elias watched in amazement as Lena, small, soaked, and shaking, guided the calf to safer ground. When the calf finally reached the dry path, Lena sat back, breathing hard but smiling faintly. Elias rushed to help her stand. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his voice filled with worry. "No," she said, brushing mud from her hands. "Just tired." Elias looked into her eyes, and for a moment, he couldn't speak. He had never seen such bravery, quiet, steady bravery that came from a place deep inside. The storm finally passed after another hour of work. The ranch was safe. The animals were sheltered, and the land held firm. Elias and Lena returned to the house, soaked, muddy, and exhausted. But there was a peaceful pride in the air. They sat near the fireplace, warming their hands. Lena shivered slightly, still cold from the rain. Elias handed her a dry blanket and sat beside her quietly. "You saved that calf," he said softly. "It was just a small calf," Lena replied, almost embarrassed. "It doesn't matter how small it was," Elias said. "You risked yourself without thinking twice. You were brave." Lena looked at him with shy eyes. "Anyone would have done the same." "No," Elias said gently. "Not everyone." "You did." She didn't respond, but her eyes softened. She stared at the fire, watching the flames dance gently, feeling warmth slowly return to her body. As the night grew quiet, she finally spoke in a soft voice. "Most of my life, people thought I couldn't do anything difficult. They thought I was too small, too weak." Elias shook his head slowly. "They were looking at the wrong things." "What do you mean?" "They looked at your size," he said, "but not at your heart." Lena felt a lump in her throat. No one had ever said anything like that to her. "You have a strong heart," Elias continued. "Stronger than anyone who ever judged you." The words settled deep inside her, warming her more than the fireplace. She felt something new, a feeling she hadn't felt in years. Confidence. Hope. Maybe even a bit of pride. When she finally went to bed that night, she lay awake for a few minutes, listening to the quiet house. She thought about the storm, about the calf, about Elias's words, and about how far she had come since the day she was rejected at the station. For the first time since her journey began, she didn't feel lost. She felt seen, she felt strong, and she had no idea that this strength, along with the bond quietly forming between her and Elias, would soon shape her future in ways she never expected. The morning after the storm felt different. The sky was clear, the air smelled fresh, and the ground shimmered with tiny drops of leftover rain. But the biggest change was inside Lena. She woke up with a quiet sense of pride she had never felt before. She looked at her hands and remembered how she had pulled the calf from the mud during the storm. Her clothes had been soaked, her body had shaken, and fear had hit her more than once, but she kept going. For the first time, she didn't see herself as weak. She saw someone who tried, someone who didn't step back when things became difficult. Elias noticed the change too. When Lena walked into the kitchen that morning, there was a calm confidence in her steps. She smiled at him in a soft, natural way that made something warm grow in his chest. As she prepared tea and bread, he watched her move around the kitchen with ease. She had made the ranch feel brighter, more peaceful than before. "You sleep well?" Elias asked. "Yes," she said, pouring tea into 2 cups. "You earned it," he replied. "Yesterday was a hard day. Not many people could have done what you did." Lena felt her cheeks warm. "I just wanted to help, and you did far more than that," Elias said quietly. After breakfast, they stepped outside to repair the small damages the storm had caused. Some fences were bent. A few tools had been blown away, and pieces of wood lay scattered across the yard. But working together made everything feel simple. Elias hammered new boards into place, and Lena held the nails steady. She swept the porch while he fixed loose roof shingles. Whenever a job felt too heavy for her alone, Elias stepped in without treating her like she was weak. He worked beside her, not in front of her or behind her. As they worked, the ranch hands arrived. They had heard about Lena's bravery during the storm. One of them, a friendly man named Thomas, gave her an impressed nod. "We heard you saved the calf," he said kindly. "Strong work." Lena looked shy but grateful. It was the first time men who worked with their hands every day looked at her with genuine respect. She didn't know how to respond, so she simply nodded and smiled. As the days passed, the bond between her and Elias grew quietly through shared work, peaceful meals, and simple moments. They talked more, though neither of them forced conversation. Elias told her stories about growing up on the ranch, how he learned everything from his father, and how his mother taught him kindness and patience. Lena listened with interest, imagining the young version of him running through the fields with muddy boots and a curious mind. Lena slowly opened up too. She told him about her old town, her parents, and the lonely days she spent working and dreaming of a more meaningful life. She admitted that she always felt unnoticed, as if she existed in the background of other people's lives. "That's because they didn't look properly," Elias said one evening. as they stood near the fence watching the sunset. Some people only see what is loud or obvious. They miss the quiet things that are strong in their own way. Lena lowered her head, touched by his words yet again. One morning, the quiet ranch received an unexpected visitor. A man on horseback approached with a confident stride. When Lena saw him from a distance, her breath froze. Even from far away, she recognized the tall posture and sharp shoulders. It was Mr. Halston. He dismounted his horse and walked toward the porch, his boots kicking up small clouds of dust. Lena felt her heart race. She hadn't seen him since the day he rejected her at the station. She stepped back slightly, unsure of what he wanted. Elias immediately noticed her sudden stiffness and moved closer, standing protectively near her. Mr. Halston stopped in front of them and cleared his throat. "I heard you stayed in town after I turned you away," he said. "I assumed you went back home. But it seems you ended up here." Lena stayed quiet. She didn't trust her voice. Elias's expression remained calm but guarded. "Is there something you want?" Halston adjusted his hat. "I came to reconsider my decision." Lena blinked, stunned. "Reconsider?" "Yes," he said as if doing her a favor. "I've been short on help at my ranch, and people in town mentioned how you handled yourself during the storm. They say you're hard-working." He shrugged. "I might have judged too quickly. If you still want the arrangement, I'm willing to take you." Lena felt the old sting of hurt returning. It was clear he didn't come because he respected her as a person. He came because others had spoken of her efforts. He didn't even apologize properly. He simply talked as if she should be grateful he changed his mind. Before Lena could respond, Elias stepped forward, his voice steady. "She's not an object you can simply accept or reject based on convenience." Halston frowned. "I wasn't talking to you." "No," Elias said, "but I am talking to you. She's not someone you get to give permission to. She chooses her own path." Lena looked at Elias with wide eyes. No one had ever spoken up for her like that. Halston looked annoyed. "Lena, I'm offering you a secure future, a large ranch, a stable life. You wanted that, didn't you?" Lena took a slow breath. Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice was steady when she finally spoke. "I did want a future," she said softly. "And I still do. But not with someone who couldn't see me the first time." Halston's eyebrows shot up. "You're refusing me?" "Yes," Lena said gently, but firmly. "I've found a place where I'm treated with respect. That means more to me than anything you can offer." Halston stood there for a moment, shocked. He looked from her to Elias, as if trying to understand how the small girl he once dismissed now had the strength to stand tall. With a short, frustrated sigh, he turned and walked back to his horse. "You're making a mistake," he said before mounting. "No," Lena replied quietly. "For the first time, I'm not." Halston rode away without another word. When he disappeared over the hill, Lena's knees weakened slightly. She wasn't scared, just overwhelmed. Elias stepped beside her, gently touching her arm. "You all right?" he asked. Lena nodded slowly. "Yes, I think I am." "You handled that well," he said with a soft smile. "I wasn't alone," she whispered. They stood in silence for a moment, the breeze brushing gently around them. The ranch felt even more like home now. Lena realized something important. She was no longer the same woman who arrived at the station feeling invisible. She had grown quietly but deeply, just like the sunrise spreads across the sky without noise. That evening, as they walked toward the porch, Elias paused and looked at her with thoughtful eyes. "Lena," he began, "I know you came here without a plan, and I know you're still rebuilding your life, but I want to ask you something." She turned to him, her heart beating faster. "You've brought light into this place," Elias said softly. "You've worked with your heart, cared for everything around you, and changed my home in ways I didn't expect." He took a small breath. "I want you to stay. Not because I need help. Not because I feel responsible for you. But because I want you here." Lena felt her chest tighten with emotion. She looked into his eyes and saw honesty, respect, and quiet admiration, the very things she had longed for. things she had thought she would never find. "Do you want to stay?" Elias asked gently. Lena didn't need to think long. The ranch had become her refuge, her family, her place of belonging. And Elias, he had seen her strength before she even believed in it herself. "Yes," she whispered, her voice filled with warmth. "I want to stay." A soft smile spread across Elias's face. "Then this is your home now." As the sun dipped behind the hills, coloring the sky in shades of gold and pink, Lena felt something she had never felt before: complete peace. She stood beside Elias, watching the world grow quiet around them. She came as someone others dismissed for being too small, but she stayed as someone whose strength shaped her future. And in the heart of the ranch, she finally found what she had been searching for all along: a place where she wasn't overlooked, a place where she belonged, a place where she was truly seen.